one thing which is obvious is to make sure that your budgeting and forecasting model is one that's very, very tight and is up to date. If your accounting system allows you to have a dashboard that shows exactly where what your current cash position is in, that's something that's very, very important. Understanding exactly the timing of cash flows and the risk attached to whether they're going to come in or not is also something very, very very important. I think that another thing is, and this depends on, I don't know your organization, Paul, but it's if you're the head of an organization, this need not be your job only, right? And so all the other folks who are within the organization that have got authority to spend or even to recommend expenditures, to bring them in it as well, so that all of a sudden it's not just you being the bad guy, if you want to call it that, and saying can't spend, can't spend, can't spend. Really, the issue of saying is how do you embed it into the processes? If you've got if you got a weekly management touch base, for example, are you all looking at the cash flow on that weekly basis, right? If it's a question of a monthly cycle that you're on, etc. When times are tight, I'd say you got to crank it back and look at it far more frequently. I think also the whole question of risk that's attached to any particular cash flow. Gee, how many people do you think are going to renew? Gee, how many people are going to attend this particular event? How many people are going to register for whatever it happens to be? And get a sense of saying, okay, so we're expecting a certain amount of cash at a particular amount of time. Okay, but what's the risk profile on actually receiving it or receiving it in a timely manner? And what can you do to sort of fast forward so you get that money a bit earlier, or you reduce the risk of it not being as much as you have. I also think that for large organizations, there's a whole bunch of treasury management systems that can sort of help make sure that you understand kind of where your money is. Okay. I also think most organizations have got reserves, and sadly, most organizations haven't really looked at. And I know for some regulated organizations that those reserves can only be invested in some very specific things. But if you don't have those restrictions, the question is, where and how are those reserves being invested, right? Is it 30-day GICs? Is it 12-month treasury bonds or ETFs or whatever it is? I'm not suggesting moving to a higher risk profile for your reserves, but I think that the question of exactly how your money is actually being used. Large organizations use sweep accounts where money is moved to every night overnight to somewhere where they can earn interest and swept right back in, right? So there's other ways of sort of making sure money is actually being used, but sometimes there's pockets that you haven't really considered. And like I said, I'm not talking about increasing risk profile for any of your cash flows or reserves, but I think it's something to look at.